Hello, thanks for joining me for this free training. What you should be seeing right now is the title slide, Escaping Job Search Hell, How to Land Better Jobs Faster for More Pay. Now, my name's Tim Reagan, and I'm the owner of Career Constructors, and our focus is on working with people, teams, and organizations to essentially turbocharge their performance and success, which is what this training is all about tonight. Now, so first off, let's make sure that this training is going to, scratch your specific itch, and whether this is really where you should be investing your time right now. So, this is the place you want to be if you can relate strongly to any of these statements. So, if you're in an active job search and you're frustrated by the results you've been getting to date, if you are planning a career transition, which could include, re-entering the workforce after taking a break, an educational break or otherwise, and you need to know how to go about that, doing that career transition. This is the place you want to be if you are currently underemployed and you're not sure how to improve your situation. And if you're, trying to figure out what it is you want to do with your life, that big question we all face. And also, you're going to get a lot out of this training if you are wanting to move from traditional employment to starting your own thing, and even starting to just kind of explore what that might look like. So if at least one of these statements fits your situation, then you're definitely in the right place, and you're going to get a ton of value out of this training. Now, this is a quick biography about me. And I'm not going to say too much about it right now, because in a few minutes I want to dive into sort of my fascination with the world of work. And I'm going to share with you then the backstory about how I got to do the work that I do today, and that leads directly into this training. Now, my tagline, and really it's my mission statement these days, is retooling us to thrive in the free agent economy. And this training is really the backbone for that, as it presents a step-by-step approach for essentially reinventing yourself. And, the reality is, that you and I are going to have to get really good at doing this. And that's whether we want to or not. Because the work world is constantly in turmoil, and things are changing, even more rapidly for all of us. So this training is going to show you not only how to go about finding meaningful work right now, today, but more importantly, how to continually thrive in the modern turbulent work world going forward. Now, just so that it's not distracting, I'm going to turn off my video, and we'll just concentrate on the slides. Now, there's three big content chunks that I'm going to cover in this training. First, we're going to rip into the traditional process, and by that I mean the job board-centric job search. And I want to show you how it's fundamentally flawed, so we'll do a deep dive into that so you can clearly see how the game is rigged against you and why you need to behave differently to succeed. Then I'm going to lay out all the pieces of what a successful job search needs to look like and how they come together and be properly aligned. And I'll address in detail exactly how to construct a successful job search and the specific tools that you need to do it. And then at the end of the training, I've kept aside a few minutes to share with you the main questions that have come up time and time again from previous participants, because I suspect that you might have similar questions. So what I'd like you to do is jot down your own questions as we go through the training, and if they're not answered during the Q&A session, then simply reply to any of the follow-up emails that you're going to get from me, and I'll get a response back to you. So we've got lots of ground to cover in our training, and it's important to have a clear goal laid out. And so this is what our mutual goal is today. We're here to help get your career on a better trajectory so that you can make the living that you aspire to. So here's what I need from you. You see, this is the deal. Implementation is key. So I want you to come today with an implementation mindset. So not a passive learning, but an active learning mindset. So I want you to be thinking about how you'll put what you're going to learn today into action. You know, what specific steps you'll take to move yourself out of job search hell and start to operate in a different way. Now, a lot of what you're going to learn today runs counter to how most people think things work. And it probably runs counter to a lot of the advice that you might have received up to now. So this is a big one. Don't let the fear of what everybody else thinks you should be doing to stop you from moving forward with your own specific action plan. So let's talk about your job search and what's frustrating you the most. And these are what I hear time and time again in terms of the top frustrations. So the number one is the lack of feedback. So this is that whole kind of black hole thing that's going on in the job board world, where you send off application after application and no one provides you any status on where they sit. And then the second one is very much related to the first one, which is a lot of effort expended, but little or no results. And so this is about literally pouring hundreds and hundreds of hours into your job search, and again, around the job board application process, and having little, if any, tangible results to show for that massive time investment. The third one that I hear, a fair bit is a lack of clarity about what I actually want to be doing. And the problem here is that when you're not clear, your efforts tend to wander, and we can often end up sort of chasing our tails and going in all kinds of different directions and not making any forward movement. Number four is this, what I call a catch-22 thing, if you're familiar with that statement. But essentially, it's a job experience conundrum. And it's especially relevant today for new Canadians and for new graduates. And basically, it's that you can't get a job without experience, and you can't gain the experience without a job. So, how exactly do you break that cycle and move forward? And then the final frustration that I hear expressed over and over again is about ageism or perceived ageism. And basically, it's when you believe that you're being perceived as too old and you're getting passed over for jobs that you know you can do and are qualified for. So those are the main frustrations that I've heard time and time again, and that have sort of popped up as the top 5 statements. So take a moment right now to think about your own specific situation. What's your biggest frustration, and what challenges are you having difficulty overcoming as you work to move forward? So I'd like you to just kind of take a moment and jot those down, and then keep them in mind as we go through this training. And I hope that in most cases, the training is going to speak to those challenges directly. And if not, again, you'll definitely have the opportunity to share your specific challenges with me. Just throw me follow up to any of my emails and just throw me a question, and I'll give you some feedback on it. And I really do appreciate the feedback, and you're sharing that with me. I'm going to make a point later in the training about the importance of feedback to help us learn, and I'm really no different, and I learn through your feedback. So please do share it with me. I love this quote. For in the end, it is impossible to have a great life unless it is a meaningful life. And it is very difficult to have a meaningful life without meaningful work. So, what you really want, what we all really want, is to find a fulfilling career that allows us to make a big difference and impact in the world, and to be able to make a good living doing it. So I think that helps us boil down the key question to this. How exactly do I discover my most purposeful life's work and attract it into my life? And that's what our training is going to step you through, and it's going to show you every aspect of what you need to do to succeed at that. So today I want to help you start to design your path to your highest purpose career. And just before we start that, let me share with you just a couple of things about my own story. Now, in the most simple terms, you might consider me a professional job hopper. And, let me explain that. My traditional career involved 20, what I would call action-packed years, predominantly spent in the high-tech sector. And in those 20 years, I had 12 vastly different roles in 4 global companies, including a handful of high-profile international assignments and a stint as the CEO of a tech startup. And even though I was during that time subjected to a few non-voluntary downsizings, right? I got fired a couple of times. Most of the job hopping was actually by choice. I discovered that I liked to get into a new role, figure out how to fix, streamline, automate, or otherwise improve it, and then move into the next challenge. And that just turns out to be how I'm wired. So I ended up having to kind of reinvent myself into completely different roles on the average of about every 18 months or so. And after that 20 years, I then left that world of traditional employment, and that was in 2002, and I became a free agent. And since then, I've completed at least, at last count, 97 assignments with multinational small businesses, service organizations, funding agencies, crown corporations, the not-for-profit sector. I've taught as a university prof for 8 years in the business school. I've authored a couple of books, and I've done various other things. And as you can readily see, it's not a traditional or even a predictable path. It really was just more job hopping and career transitioning. So basically lots and lots of ongoing career reinvention. Now, as I explored my new world and worked to develop meaningful revenue and professional growth opportunities, my sense of clarity and ultimate direction did evolve with every new step. But it was a very slow and sometimes a painful process with more than a few missteps along the way. And then sort of a few years ago, I realized something, and this was my big aha moment. And what I realized is that the continual career transition and reinvention path that I had freely chosen for myself and honed over a combined 35 years is actually now becoming the new normal for every working age person in the 21st century. And we're going to talk about that in a second. And so I sort of thought, okay, well, I'm going to set about refining, testing, packaging, and documenting everything that I've learned so that I can reduce the pain and the challenge of being in this continual mode of active career navigation for people such as yourself. And so really how to develop these superior career reinvention and navigation skills is what I'm going to teach you in this training today. So first, I think it's really important to be clear on the why. Why are effective job search skills, why are effective career reinvention and navigation skills becoming so critical? And I think it's a really important question to ponder, because if you don't truly appreciate the why of it, you're not going to commit the time, the energy, and the resources to learning a new, more powerful way of doing things, which is what this training is really going to sort of demand of you if you want to implement it fully in your own career. So let's look at just a couple of basic considerations. And this will be no surprise to people on this call. We're heading into much more disruptive times ahead. Facing more and more turbulence in our working lives, and whether that's driven by technology, globalization, outsourcing, we're talking about automation, AI, robots. All of that means that our organizations that we're working in are going to be more disrupted more frequently and more violently. And that means that we're all going to have to navigate more frequent career transitions over our working lives. Now, the second biggie is that there's a huge cost to you when you are unemployed or underemployed. And, just based on some numbers around sort of the average job tenure and how long career transitions, job searches are taking these days, basically when you run the numbers, a 100K annual earner faces $833,000 in lost income over their working career. So that's the equivalent of 8.3 years of no income for a 100K earner over a 42-year career. So there's big bucks that you're leaving on the table if you don't get good at navigating through these kinds of disruptions. And then as another consideration, I think it's important to look at the time that we all spend working. And, you want, that's a lot of time, and you want that time to be purposeful, whatever that happens to mean for you. You don't want to fritter it away doing work that you don't really care about, or even worse, that stresses you out and drains you. And, finally, we're all living longer. So many of us will be working for longer throughout our lives, and whether that's by choice or by financial circumstance. So with our working lives becoming more disruptive, the huge cost associated with long job searches, finding meaningful work more quickly, and quite possibly working for longer, then, certainly to me, it just makes sense that the better you get at this rapid transitioning in your career and becoming better at identifying and landing great fit opportunities, the more successful, the more engaged, and fundamentally, the richer you will be. So in fact, practically speaking, knowing how to find meaningful work and navigate graceful transitions in this highly turbulent work world is the ultimate and really the only source of real job security. So, it comes down to 21st century job hopping. That's what this is all about, and you need to become very skilled at it. And so that's what we're going to do a deep dive into right now. So let's start here. What's wrong with what we're all ordinarily doing in a traditional job search activity? And a traditional job search, as I mentioned earlier, really involves spending the vast majority of your time looking at job boards for roles to apply to, then applying to them, and then waiting for a response. Now, here's how I characterize it. Here's the typical job search in a nutshell. And this speaks directly to several of the top frustrations that we talked about a few minutes ago. So this is it. Basically spending hundreds and hundreds of hours on your own and isolated, picking and choosing and following the latest sort of new resume format or the top 5 tips or, whatever that you've got off of the internet or your buddies are telling you. And then basically throwing dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of job applications into this big black hole that most often returns nothing at all to you. And, that is just incredibly frustrating and debilitating. So I want to do a deep dive into that, and I want to show you what's actually happening there and why it's almost guaranteed that you're not going to get the results that you're expecting if you conduct your job search that way. Now, I refer to this job posting centric approach as the spray and pray approach, and you can understand why, or SAP for short. And, we're all familiar with the process that's shown here. So applying for those posted jobs off of the job boards, the responses are going to be collected by HR, reviewed, shortlisted, and then interviewed for. And at some point, they make a selection. And, my contention is that this process is actually the start of your troubles and not at all your salvation. And here's why. So first, it immediately gets you firing up your browser and looking at what's listed. And of course, with all of the job boards that are out there, there's literally hundreds of applicable roles listed. So you can spend hours just cruising through the boards, looking at all sorts of stuff. And this immediately gets you thinking, what are all the things I can do, rather than the much more powerful question, which is, what is it that I really want to do? So you skip that whole sort of reflective piece about what's actually important to you, and you jump into the boards. And, of course, the reality is you can do a lot of different things. So you apply for several different kinds of roles, and for each one, you make up a more or less a completely new story to showcase that specific skill. And so a few weeks into your active job search like this, and you now probably have several different resumes, all saying quite different things, and a job search that is exploring several different paths. So, just as an example, let's say that you've got training credentials and you've performed roles as a butcher, a baker, and as a candlestick maker. So now you're presenting 3 completely different faces to the world through your job board focus. Now, on the surface, this feels productive because you think that you're a serious candidate for a known posted job. So the logic goes that, gee, the more postings you apply for, the better your overall chances, right? what you probably don't appreciate is that the average posted job in North America receives 317 applications, and the person doing the initial sort is quite junior because it's a horrible job and knows almost nothing about the specific role and has a very limited time to select a handful for interviewing. And when you roll all those things up, what happens is a very arbitrary selection process takes place. Excuse me. And, you know, so you wait and you wait and you wait some more, but rarely are you getting any feedback. And, you know, feedback is how humans learn, and this process gives you none. And, okay, so what do you now do? Well, here's what most people do. You double down and you apply for even more jobs, but now at more junior levels than you were considering, you know, a week or two ago. You know, but the logic again is, well, hey, maybe I'll get some bites this way. So forget about going for a candlestick maker. Now I'm going to position myself for candlestick maker coordinator, hoping that I'm going to get some traction that way. And, you know, at a few hours per application, this process consumes the vast majority of your job search time. And, you know, by the time you feed this machine, you're probably way too exhausted to go out networking. And frankly, even if you had the energy, it's confusing because you don't know what you're looking for because you've been looking for a bunch of quite different things. So how do you network effectively with that? And, you know, sure, if you're going to the baker's convention, then you can present your baker's story. But what about when you just meet somebody randomly and you have to introduce yourself? Do you lead with the butcher, with the baker, with candlestick maker? And of course you can't know, and so you fumble around with your intro and you start to ramble, and that's a big part of why we all get so frustrated with our networking. And, you know, my contention is this: the only thing that you can really count on with confidence by following this SAP approach, the spray and pray approach, is that you will become incredibly frustrated, confused, and feeling isolated and withdrawn. And here is one last data point to put a final nail in this coffin. And this one amazes me. Even if you do beat the incredibly long odds, get chosen, get the interview, and land the job, there's only about a 50% chance that it's going to stick. Almost half of the people hired this way, and the actual stat is 46% of the people that are hired this way resign or are fired within 18 months. And most usually that's cited for about poor fit from either the candidate or the company is saying, this is not the right match. 46% resign or are fired within 18 months. Now, I got to say that those are pretty crappy odds for all the hard, exhausting, frustrating work that you're pouring into the job boards. Now, in a world where we consider job search as a free activity, it's worth spending a moment on what this free job search is actually costing you when you're spinning your wheels like this following the SAP approach. So if you're pursuing a 60K annual salary, and that's just a little bit above the Canadian average, then each and every week of search is costing you $1,154 in lost income. And that's $5,000 per month. So, you know, ask yourself, how many weeks or months have you been searching already? So how much has your job search already cost you in terms of lost earnings? And I think it's worthwhile to write that number down because it will serve to remind you of the true value of taking decisive action to accelerate your career success. And the point I'm wanting to make here is that your job search can be a seriously expensive activity for you if it's not getting tangible results quickly and if it's driving you to pursue roles where you undersell yourself. And that is both what the SAP approach, what the spray and pray approach does. So I'm going to walk you now through a proven blueprint that can shave weeks and even months off of your search time and enables and motivates you to pursue true great fit roles. So then you can put more money more quickly into your own pocket. Now, to construct a job search blueprint that actually works for you, the job seeker, you need to first understand how things really happen in the work world and then design for that real world. And this, I contend, is where a combined engineering and business, hands-on approach provides a huge advantage over the more traditional HR-focused career support services. So let's look at this. Let's look at how the process really works. So look at this process. This one is ending with the formal posting to the job board. So this one ends where the SAP approach begins. Remember, the SAP approach began with post the ad and then all that stuff internally about the selection process. So this one ends at that point. And in all cases, what you're seeing here is what is actually happening behind the scenes, usually months before the formal job gets posted. And this is what is often referred to as the hidden job market, and what I refer to as influencing the informal process. So I make the point that there's two processes, the informal process, which is this, and the formal process, which is the one we showed earlier. You have to play them both, but you have to know how to play, in particular, the informal process, because it's the one that gets you the results. So let's quickly step through it. When a need is identified, the hiring manager thinks, who do I know that could do this? Now, as a seasoned professional, they possibly already have a candidate or even two in mind. And if not, well, they're waiting for budget approval for the headcount, which we all know can take several months. They're asking their colleagues and friends if they know of any qualified candidates. So they're starting to put out feelers, and they may even start informal interviews before the budget is approved and HR is advertising the job. So this informal process where you become the preferred candidate through your connections is what is really happening in the vast, vast majority of vacancies filled. And in fact, if you think about it, I'm sure that you have examples from your own experience, and certainly from experience of other people that you know, where that validates this exact statement. So if you're following the SAP approach, you have to realize this. For any job that you are applying for, there is already at least one preferred candidate. And then there's a sea of applicants who essentially have little or no chance at that job. And you're currently in that much bigger second group. So becoming the preferred candidate, which is someone who's already known and trusted by the hiring manager and key influencers, becoming that preferred candidate improves your odds by as much as 150 to 1 for that specific role. So the question really now becomes, how do you become that preferred candidate? And you do that by learning and following a people-centric search strategy. Now, a people-centric search provides guaranteed results. And that's because it's designed around the reality of how people really operate, and it addresses directly the many flaws that are inherent in the SAP approach. Think of it this way, we still live in a world where people hire people they know and trust, and we need to leverage that. So what do you need to do to succeed in this way, in a people-centric strategy? Well, the first is you need to commit to one powerful story that you tell with confidence and enthusiasm. And it's a story that combines it all. So it's, in our case, it's butcher, baker, and candlestick maker all rolled into one. Now your productivity is going to be measured in your network growth and your outreach activities, not in how many applications you fired into the void. And what happens is you get a lot of feedback like this. You get feedback from all your people-centric activities, and then you learn and you grow and you improve with that feedback. So now 80% of your job search time is spent researching and meeting with people rather than being isolated and alone feeding the machine. And as you spend time in this approach, your clarity is going to improve, your confidence is growing, and you are building momentum. And so now when you do land that perfect job, it's going to stick because it's not a game of chance that got you there. Now, this is all packaged up in this easy to follow blueprint, and I'm going to walk you through that in some detail in just a few minutes. And I referred earlier to this being a core skill set for the 21st century, much like literacy was in the 19th century. And I want you to think about it this way. When you first learned to read, it was no doubt a challenge. But little by little, the more you read, the better you got. And it's the same concept with this blueprint that can allow you to future-proof your career. The more you actively embrace and practice what you're going to learn today, the better you'll get at generating success in every current and future step of your career. So to kick us off, here's a high-level view of what your new improved job search is going to look like once you commit to this blueprint. So here's 7 action steps that are going to carry you forward, building confidence and momentum and leading you to a successful outcome faster. And step 1 is tools down now. Stop committing your time to the SAP approach because it is killing you. And as you've now seen, the process is fundamentally broken, and I think it's breaking you. So commit to breaking this bad habit now. Now, this is both the simplest step because it involves nothing more than you simply stopping to spend all your time and energy on the job boards. But it's also the toughest step because the job boards are so easy to default to. You don't have to talk to anybody, and they make you feel good in the moment and feel positive about your chances, at least for a few days. So it's kind of very much like a lottery ticket, and unfortunately with about the same results. So step 1 is tools down now. And step 2 is committing to developing your highest value story. So no more of this having multiple resumes that all tell very different stories about you. And we're going to go deeper into how to construct your story in a few minutes. This step is going to bring you into alignment and give you a very powerful story and ensure that you're not squandering your efforts in all kinds of different directions. And once you've got your story nailed, then you're going to focus on network outreach. So your third action step is that you're now going to shift your job search activities from spending 80% of your time isolated on the job boards to spending 80% of your time with people, networking, and influencing the informal process. And to do this effectively, you're going to have to focus on a few key networking strategies, all of which are in the blueprint that's coming up in a few minutes. And that leads us to the fourth action step, which is all about boosting the feedback that you're receiving. Because what's going to come from this, from your move into the networking centric way, is a lot of feedback from real live people that will allow you to quickly fine tune your pitch to perfection. And as you know firsthand, one of the big failures of the SAP approach is that you get no feedback. And feedback, as I said earlier, is how we learn, how we improve, and how we grow in confidence. So maximizing it is a critical step in effective job search. And so step number 5 is really the culmination of 3, 4, and 5. It's becoming a more effective networker. By having your most powerful story, by committing to it and practicing it, by incorporating the feedback you get, and by putting yourself out there consistently, you will become a very capable, effective, disciplined networker, even if you are a massive introvert. And that leads us to step 6, which is about 10xing the number of interviews that you participate in. And regardless of the communication technologies we use, it is still people who influence, recommend, and hire other people. And so this means getting out there in real time and making a positive impression through informational interviews. And not only does this get you in front of people, whether virtually or physically, but it also builds your conversational and interview skills and your confidence along with it. And that leads us to the final step, step number 7, which is you're going to build and manage an opportunity pipeline. And this sounds a little bit more complex than it really is. And all the insights, tools, and steps that you need to follow and to build and manage it are in the blueprint. But the opportunity pipeline is just really where you're collecting all of the conversations and you're advancing them and turning them into, over time, connections are turning into real job opportunities, applications, and ultimately negotiations. Now, following these 7 steps that I've laid out is going to move your job search to a whole new level. Your confidence, your clarity, and your effectiveness will improve, and you will find a greater success more quickly than you do through the SAP approach. So let's now get specific on the blueprint, which is laid out in the book, Reboot Your Career. Okay. Now, if you master this blueprint, you can navigate through any level of career turbulence, disruptive technologies, toxic work environments, and pretty much anything else the work world throws at you. The blueprint's being designed to be as simple and straightforward as possible, so you can get a useful output that you can put into action immediately. And the blueprint is in 3 major sections. So the first section of the Reboot Blueprint is about constructing your foundations. And think of it this way. We can all do many things, but what is it that actually sits at the intersection of our personal work style, our education, experiences, capabilities, and our values and beliefs? And the more we're prepared to explore that and to reflect on what we really care about and what motivates us, the more we discover our clarity of purpose at which we come alive. And this is why investing just a few hours of your time into building a great foundation is so critical. Doing it properly will prevent you from squandering your scarce job time, energy, and resources on a ton of false starts. And there's an old expression that I like to quote here. If given 8 hours to chop down a tree, it's best to spend the first 6 hours sharpening the axe. And as far as effective career transition and job search goes, your foundational work is axe sharpening at its most effective. Now, an ideal foundation cuts through the trees and it provides you the forest view of who you are and how you operate. It's very easy to lose ourselves in the nitty-gritty detail of what we've done and not really get the big picture. And if you can't describe the big picture, then you can't communicate your true value. And an ideal foundation dramatically improves your own clarity about your superpower. Most of us never get close to being able to describe it. And this foundation work is designed to get you there very quickly. And importantly, an ideal foundation incorporates your values and beliefs as a powerful filter to explore opportunities through that opportunity pipeline I talked about, so that you can confidently close down the ill-fitting ones and pursue the ones that are really a much better fit for you. And an ideal foundation also increases your confidence about what you have to offer and the value of that. And once you can describe your offer and you have examples from past experience that illustrate exactly how you deliver those results, your own confidence starts to soar. So the ideal foundation really provides, the strongest possible base for you to build your compelling value story and your job search strategy around. Now, this foundation work, as critical as it is, doesn't actually have to take a huge amount of your time if you follow a well-designed, laid-out blueprint. And, if you consider that every job application that you respond to in the SAP approach takes, 90 minutes to 2 hours, or sometimes more, to research it, to write it up, to submit it, this whole foundation work spread over a couple of weeks takes no more total time than a handful of formal job applications. And it's going to generate dramatically more value for you in the short and long term. And so with your investment of just a few hours of your time, you'll be able to start to confidently state, I'm much clearer on my overall purpose and I'm believing in my own unique superpower. And that becomes a very, very powerful foundation to build on. And that brings us now to section 2 of the blueprint. Section 2 tools are all about creating and polishing your compelling value story. So picking up from your foundation work, this now delivers a full communications package built around your most powerful story. So let's take a moment and deconstruct this notion of your compelling value story. Now, when you get sucked into following the SAP approach, you completely miss out on even thinking, as I mentioned earlier, about how your bigger purpose and how you combine those skills to activate your superpower. You know, job boards force you to compartmentalize your skills into narrow snapshots to match a very specific posted role. So, you know, like the examples that are shown here. But the really, truly valuable question that you need to ask yourself is this: what is my most compelling, highest value story? Where and how do I get to use my superpower to best effect for others? And the blueprint process, the exercises, and the step-by-step tools are designed so that you can answer this question directly. So it's not the reductionist thinking of this versus that the job boards are forcing on you. It's about combining all those can-do roles into your most meaningful value creation capability. So it's all about combining and integrating all your skill sets and capabilities into a powerful statement of intent. So now you can forget about your positioning dilemma about choosing between, you know, in our example, butcher, baker, or candlestick maker. When you set the right foundation in place, you're now realizing your true gift. And maybe it comes together something like this. I'm an artisanal master melding the best gluten-free organic dark breads and smoked charcuterie selections that pop when served under just the right candlelight. Now, what you're communicating in that sentence is not just the skills you have, the butcher, baker, etc., but instead how you uniquely bring these skill sets together to add exceptional value in great fit situations. And the reader or listener can quite easily visualize you at work, bringing your creation to life. And that's very powerful messaging. And that's what you want your storytelling, your tagline, your resume, your LinkedIn profile to tell people about you. Now, this is the real value of your resume, and our blueprint shows you how to construct it for maximum effect. Your resume is really nothing more than a two-dimensional packaging of your compelling story. And in it, you've got very limited amount of real estate, so 2 pages maximum, to lay out your story and to create an emotional connection with your reader. So you have to be very strategic with how you present your story. It's got to be clear, tight, and impactful. So the effort truly is in the edit. And the beautiful thing is that once you've boiled your story down into a highly impactful resume that conforms to our blueprint, you're now crystal clear, and it serves as the plot line and the story arc for all of your related storytelling activities. In short, you become a much more confident and expressive storyteller about the story of you. Now, here's what's included in your packaging work. That includes articulating your accomplishments, structuring your CV, developing your biography and your tagline, your elevator pitch, writing compelling cover letters, using LinkedIn effectively, and designing an overall social media strategy. And this is all completed in this section of the blueprint. Now, your time is precious, and so you want to invest it wisely in well-designed, focused activities. And so typically you're going to be doing this work over a few weeks and continuing to test your evolving message with a coach or trusted confidants, whoever is your own support, personal support community. And now you're getting selective feedback over time as you go public with your messaging. So as you complete this part of the blueprint, you're going to be able to state, I'm gaining confidence in my story, in the value that I add, and I'm getting better at sharing my most powerful story with others. So now it's time to really go public and start building momentum in the marketplace. So accordingly, section 3 of the blueprint contains the tools and instructions to propagate your powerful, authentic story into the marketplace while building up effective and disciplined networking skills. Now, this section contains all the insights and tools you need to successfully share your story with strangers, to research and conduct valuable information interviews, to network widely and effectively, and ultimately to negotiate and close great opportunities. Now, like most things in the job search world, the strategy and tactics of networking are misunderstood by most people. And I believe that's the number one reason why most people are uncomfortable networking. So here, let me just give you one example. And you've probably all heard this expression. You know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And this is often used by people, oftentimes introverts, as the reason for why they choose not to network actively. And because after all, the expression suggests that, you know, success is not about the technical skills, the what you know part, but it's more about how well connected you are, the who you know. And, you know, so the game sounds like you're kind of fixed, right? And you know, if that's the case, why am I going to waste my time networking when I just don't know the right people? So, yeah, that's not really very helpful, is it? So here's a simple reframing of this very well-known expression that shifts it from an excuse to a powerful enabler for you. So let's talk about your two core objectives in your overall networking strategy. Your first objective is to maximize the number of people who know you, okay? Maximize the number of people who know you. Well, that's not very difficult, and you do that just through more and better outreach activities. So attending networking events, setting up information interviews, just basically meeting people. And your second objective is to be as consistent as you can in what they know about you. And that comes from having a single, authentic, powerful story that you can share confidently with passion and brevity. And that's everything that you've completed with your foundation and the storytelling tools that we've already discussed. So now when you put those two statements together, now it's not what you know or who you know, it's who knows you and what they know about you. And I want you to, you know, let that settle in for a bit and maybe take a second to jot this down. It's not what you know or who you know, it's who knows you and what they know about you. And consider how much more powerful this is now. The beauty of this reframing is that you can clearly influence both aspects of this objective through consistent storytelling in your continuing outreach activities. So when it all comes together for you, this is what your standard networking elevator pitch might sound like. Hi, my name's Tim. I'm an artisanal master passionate about creating the most mouth-watering treats for appreciative foodies. And I do this by bringing together the most exquisite tasting breads and meats and serving them under unique candlelight settings. I like to think of myself as a butcher, baker, and candlestick maker all rolled up in one. But hey, enough about me. I'm interested in what makes you tick. What brings you here today? Now that's probably about 25 seconds or so in total. So it's tight, it's compelling, it's memorable. And this is the totality of what you want them to know and remember about you. So it's now easier for them to help you connect to possible opportunities that they hear about. And of course, you could take the same intro and break it into different sound bites so that you can drip out these sound bites during an initial introduction. So here's what I mean by that. It tells me who you serve. As an artisanal master, I'm passionate about serving appreciative foodies. It tells you the how you do it. By combining exquisite breads and meats that are handpicked and curated to work together, all served under unique lighting conditions. And it contains that all-important earworm takeaway that makes you memorable and easy to spread. Oh, I like to think of myself as a butcher, baker, and candlestick maker, all rolled up into one. And here's a final thought about the power of getting to this level of clarity, purpose, and messaging. You can use now the exact same setup and introduction at a baker's convention, at a butcher's gathering, at a Candlestick Makers conference. And it works for all of them because it presents the one true holistic picture of who you are and what drives you. So what might your memorable introduction sound like once you develop this level of clarity about your compelling value story? Now, the blueprint lays out dozens of networking insights and tips, including how to get comfortable doing the 4 things that most of us, frankly, suck at. And that's how to ask for referrals, how to generate follow-up opportunities, how to drip feed information to your contacts to keep yourself top of mind with them. And it lays out how to address that most feared interview question, what's your biggest weakness, in a way that actually showcases your authentic superpower. And of course, it also includes how to handle lots of other interview questions that many of us find difficult to field. And the key here, again, is that networking is dramatically easier because you have a single story that you're fully committed to, is authentic and connects with your passion, and you've practiced it and gotten comfortable with it. So with all this in place, networking becomes much easier to embrace, even by confirmed introverts. And networking is, you can leverage it successfully to find and land great fitting roles. So here you're going to get your best results if you're building these new networking habits into your day-to-day activities. So for full-time job seekers, we recommend 15 to 20 hours per week of active networking. Now, mostly that is all the time that you've freed up from not squandering it on the job boards. And for those in a part-time search, this might be 5 hours per week to dedicate to ongoing outreach activities. And this is where the ongoing support of a coach, confidant, or a support community is critical to cheerlead and encourage you, and also to hold your feet to the fire to be accountable for getting out there and staying engaged. So now with every daily networking activity, you're going to reinforce your can-do mindset. I'm feeling and acting differently. Good things are happening. People are responding to me positively, and great fit opportunities are starting to take shape. Now, as I've stated earlier, mastering the use of the tools that are contained in this comprehensive blueprint allows you to navigate through any level of career turbulence and anything the work world throws at you. And the book is currently available on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle versions. It starts at less than, I think, $4. So it's not at all price prohibitive to get your hands on it and get started. Now, Mark, a mid-career professional and well-practiced in the highs and lows of job search over his decades of work, took this training a few months back, and he shared this with me. The key thing I like about what I've seen so far is that while you use all the same jigsaw puzzle pieces everyone else does, you're the first to put them together to make a complete picture. And it's important, I think critically important, to have a comprehensive picture that makes sense of all the piece parts. And that's what this blueprint does, and it's what the training has walked you through. And this is what Raj, another participant in this training, shared with me recently. And he told me that he shares this with people that he comes across that are struggling with their own job search activities. You owe it to yourself to try out Tim's system. In the training, Tim lays out the fundamentals of his blueprint and makes a persuasive case for taking immediate steps to implement it. Essentially, Tim argues that it will take an equal amount of time and effort to find your ideal job versus just any job. So why not pursue what you actually want to do? After attending his webinar, I completely changed my career search strategies and have already seen significant results. So look, in a short time today, I've condensed, cram-packed, and squeezed together as tightly as possible a whole process for implementing a successful, timely, and profitable career transition. So has your time on the training thus far been well spent? Do you now feel more confident in how to succeed with your job search? And are you excited to start applying this blueprint immediately and get a positive impact on your job search and your career success? And if you answer yes to these questions, then I'm delighted to introduce my DIY Quick Start package for you, which is only available to people that have taken this training. Now you can sign up to the DIY Quick Start package at the URL shown on the slide, careerconstructors.com/DIY Quick Start. The package contains everything you need to get unstuck and on a fast track to success. Everything that I've gone through in today's training. So here's what that contains. It's a complete copy of the Reboot Your Career book, that all-important 3-section blueprint that we've just worked through in PDF form. And then you get a 45-day email training series. So an email every day that takes you through the book and the process and a step-by-step blueprint. And it lays out your journey and it provides tips and suggestions for getting the most value out of your work. Now, I send some client case studies so that you can get real examples and insights into how other people have reinvented their careers. And these are often quite valuable for providing inspiration and encouragement. You get access to a library of video training modules that take you through key exercises in the foundation building, crafting your compelling value story, and designing networking outreach activities. I included in it a 1-year subscription to our Career Backpack cloud-based application, which allows you to then keep track of all your career progression and career activities. And I support this all with 100% money-back guarantee if, for whatever reason, you decide that it's just not for you. Now, this DIY package is $47 US. I've tried to include as many tools, videos, email support tips, and other helpful goodies into this package while keeping the price really, really low. And the reason I've done this is, simply that I know that this is a tough time for people to reach into their pockets and invest in their future, even though it's a super important thing to invest in. Now, I suspect that this is the most cost-effective investment that you can make today into your immediate career success. It works out to about $1 a day. Now, the offer is only valid for 72 hours, and that starts from the time that you receive your first post-training thank you email, and those are timestamped. So that's when the 72-hour countdown clock starts. So, really simple question. Is getting your career moving into high gear important enough for you to invest $47 in? And I've priced this as a no-brainer so you can start putting the blueprint to work for you immediately. And you sign up for the DIY Quick Start package by going to the URL shown on the slide, careerconstructors.com/DIY Quick Start. Now, over the next few days, you're going to be receiving some follow-up emails from me, which will include a replay link for the training, a couple of free bonuses to help you get moving, and reminders about when the $47 special offer expires, which, as I said, is just over 72 hours from now. So to conclude today's training, I want to cover now the most frequently asked questions that I've received from these sessions. And so far, we've had about 1,400 people take this free training. And so if your question isn't specifically addressed here, then please do email me and just simply respond to any of my post-training emails and ask me your question. And I want to share a final note from a previous attendee, Catherine, before I get into the specific participant questions. She said, I think that offering this webinar to people who are in the job market, or as she called it, job hunt hell, is an incredibly community-oriented gift. What you shared during the presentation was enough to empower someone to change their direction and head more quickly toward employment. And the whole point of the last hour or so has been about helping you get unstuck by embracing a different way of approaching your job search. Now, I've been giving this free training now for many, many months, and as I said earlier, well over 1,400 people have attended this training. And the feedback has been really encouraging, and it reinforces for me that doing this is part of my working to my highest purpose. Work is a huge part of our lives, and the better we love the work we do, the better people we become. And that is a very big motivator for me. So with that, let's get to some of those final questions. So question one that I get asked, how do I figure out the hiring managers to focus on before they post the jobs? And I really don't get how that works. And the answer to this is critical to understand, and it is that simply you cannot figure out who they are in advance. The point is that once jobs are formally posted, the hiring manager withdraws and leaves it to HR to run the process. So remember, I talked about that informal process, which is influencing the hiring manager, and the formal process, which is all about HR. HR will not provide any special favors or access. They're absolutely going to run the process according to their rules. That's the formal process. So you need to get to the hiring managers and influencers before the formal jobs are posted. So that's before the formal process kicks in and HR takes over. And I know that that sounds really kind of completely impossible. But here's the surprisingly straightforward answer that makes this blueprint work so well. We are all potentially future hiring managers and influencers, even if we don't think we are. So the key is not to try to guess who might be a hiring manager. It's to network widely, consistently share your compelling story, and work your growing network of contacts, all of whom are people who are or may soon be key influencers and hiring managers, even if they don't know yet that they will be. Now, again, that might sound kind of like a big leap of faith, but if you unpack it and think it through, you will find it to be a completely accurate statement and quite possibly supported by your own experiences in your own career. So question number 2 that I get asked a lot, how do I figure out what my best story is? What do I have to eliminate if I am only focusing on one story? And again, understanding this is really critical to being effective with this blueprint. The key idea is that by honing down to one powerful story, you are not eliminating other aspects of yourself and your capabilities. You are instead integrating all the different kinds of things you can and want to do into one authentic, compelling story that creates a much more powerful value proposition for you to present. So think about the butcher, baker, candlestick maker example that we used in the training and how that morphed into artisanal master. And we didn't eliminate anything there. Rather, what we did is we crafted a much more powerful and compelling story to share. Now, here's the next question. I've never really been comfortable networking, so I shy away from it. What do I need to do? And the reason most people aren't comfortable networking is that they're not clear on their why and what they're trying to accomplish. And that really starts with the introduction and being clear on how they introduce themselves and being clear on what they're trying to accomplish with their networking. So our training has covered that, and the blueprint covers it in a lot more detail, that what your real objectives are in networking and exactly how to accomplish them. And what we find is that even then, the most introverted people become much, much more comfortable with networking once they know their why and the how of effective networking. I get this one a lot. Does the blueprint that you've outlined apply to my particular career or field? And the answer is yes. It applies to any and all fields, disciplines, backgrounds, etc. Now, obviously, all roles have different levels of requirements and regulations that apply, but the general process of successfully navigating a purposeful career transition applies to all work environments, including the public, the private, and the not-for-profit sectors. Question 5, I don't have a support network that I can leverage. What should I be doing? And the reality is that most of us don't have objective and trusted confidants that we can rely on throughout our job search to help us. And we really do need to have people in our camp that we can depend on. Now, what you want to surround yourself with is people who are who are enthusiastic about supporting your dreams and desires. It helps if they're authentic too. But you want them enthusiastic about supporting your dreams and desires, while at the same time holding you to account to actually take constructive steps to validate your beliefs and move your job search forward. And if you have people like that in your life, then you're in great shape. But that is a lot to ask for and a lot to expect from most people. And by the way, that's one reason why I've recently launched something that I call the Free Agent Collective, which is on my wall behind me. And that's a community membership of people that are dedicated to putting their own career development objectives first in their lives and really putting their own lives first, and building that into their day-to-day activities. And if you want to find out more about that, I don't want to take time here, but if you want to find out more about that, just shoot me an email, reply to any of the emails that you'll be getting from me, and just ask for more info on the Free Agent Collective. Now, a follow-up question on networking is often this one. I'm relatively new to my area and I don't have a network to tap into. What should I be doing? And this is a specific aspect of the pain that we really all feel with networking. And the great news here is that with access to the internet, you can quickly find local or regional events and activities where you can meet people, and you can leverage the internet to reach out to anybody globally to start a conversation. So it's really a matter of knowing what kinds of topics you're curious about, and then doing some basic internet search to find interesting people and explore opportunities. So there's kind of a success equation here, and it is clarity plus strategy plus discipline equals network expansion and opportunity creation. So clarity plus strategy plus discipline equals network expansion and opportunity creation. I get this one a fair bit, so I've included this. Why only 72 hours for the do-it-yourself quick start special? And here's the thing. I know that, I've thrown a lot at you in this training, and I expect that quite a bit of it is different from what you've probably seen out there. So you probably want a bit of time to reflect on what we've covered. But you also need to take action. Things don't just happen by thinking about them. And this blueprint isn't going to go and put itself into motion for you just because you sat through this training. And remember at the beginning, we talked about an implementation mindset. Well, this is what we talked about, you taking action. So the 72-hour expiry of this offer is a hard deadline that helps you make a decision and move forward accordingly. And I want to reward and work with people that take decisive, positive action. But here's really the big question whenever anyone is asked to dig into their pockets and pull out their credit card. Is this really the aspect of my life where I should be investing my scarce resources? And let's face it, you got a lot of things going on in your life right now, and you have to pick and choose where you should be spending your time, your energy, and your resources. And your best strategy is to focus on those things that can really move the needle for you in a meaningful way in an important part of your life. And if that is not your career right now, then no, do not put your time and effort into this. You have other greater priorities, and you should really be doubling down on those. But if career acceleration is important to you right now, and I'm guessing that because you registered for and you sat through this training, then investing $47 to put a proven blueprint to work for you should definitely qualify up there as a no-brainer. So that brings us to the end of this training. And we've just clocked in, I think, just over an hour at this point. And that's probably, frankly, that's about half the time that you would have put into researching and applying for a single posted job in the SAP approach. So I hope at this point you can now see how putting this training into practice can eliminate hundreds of hours of frustration in your current job search hell, and put you on a path to finding a better job more quickly for more pay. And so if you want to get started right now to put this training into action, then you're doing that by going to the URL shown, the careerconstructors.com/DIY Quick Start, and registering for the DIY Quick Start package. And I'd like to reiterate, take a moment just to reiterate one final time, I welcome any and all feedback about the training and anything else that you want to share with me. So respond to any of my emails with your questions, your comments, feedback, and I will personally respond. So I'd like to thank you again for spending your time with me on this training. Tim Regan signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.